Welcome everybody, my name is EruptionFang, and this is episode 12, the season finale of Nomad of Nowhere, titled Fiesta. So after crashing Don's party, the Nomad berates Don for not giving the people enough water. Things go about as well as you'd expect, and a fight breaks out between everyone. Don ensures the city is blocked off so the Nomad has nowhere to run, and he lights the city on fire for dramatic effect. Scout's goal, on the other hand, seems to want to help the Nomad. That, or she herself is trying to escape the oasis. Either way, the reservoir must be broken. But while on the roof, Scout is once again held at gunpoint by Red Manuel. He's a bit self-conscious about himself, which Scout takes advantage of before blasting him from a cannon. That is a human cannonball in every sense of the term. But unfortunately, Harry is still the only one to have theoretically died from it. I mean, who knows, Harry may show up in the future, we don't know where he landed. This whole scene goes back to last episode where I said Scout shouldn't have survived getting out of that mine. Red Manuel once again has her at gunpoint, but at least this time there was a way out of the scenario. But Red Manuel landed in Toth's cell and he gets punched. Meanwhile, back at the fight between Don and the Nomad, we get a few new tricks the Nomad decides to use. He brings a bunch of rocks to life to form himself a suit of rock armor, and from there the fight goes about as well as you'd expect from a giant rock knight versus an aristocrat. Toth then shows up, bullying Don around and destroying the Nomad's suit. But the Nomad's tricks don't end there, as he brings to life his biggest creation yet. With it, the reservoir is busted open and Scout swoops in to save the Nomad. The good times don't end there, as Toth makes her way atop the roof and throws her axe at Scout and the Nomad. They are both saved by the statue, and Toth is defeated. I'll get into Toth a little later in this video, after a specific scene. Anyway, the people rejoice at the reservoir's destruction. I mean, from our perspective, it kind of just looks like the water has disappeared and they're all gonna die. But as Santi said, there's more. While we're at these three, I never really thought much of them. I liked Noel, and I was really indifferent on Santi and Jethro. But what I've realized in hindsight after the season, these three really never were bad guys. They were never for Don's insane goal or even following Toth's manhunt. They were like three friends that all got a job at the same place that they hated. I mean, just thinking back as to all of their scenes together, they're never really doing anything. They're always just standing around talking to each other and complaining. Their appearances all season, I was just like, yeah, these guys. But now that the season has ended and I think back about them, I actually love them because they're all too relatable. I think it was their world and situation that made me miss it at first, but you place them in like a mall or something and they're just like teenagers. So I actually love this group now. But the question is, will they return for another season? Toth, once again, I'll get into her soon, may bring them along for her journey, but I feel that either their story ends here or they're gonna get dragged along for another unwanted job. Then we get to the meaty part of the episode. So as Don stated last episode, El Rey was summoned because they had the Nomad captured, and he has arrived in crow form. But now the Nomad is no longer captured. El Rey's not upset. He's not angry, he's just a little bit hungry. Just open up a little Snickers and give it to him. He's not himself when he's hungry. And that's too bad Don didn't have a Snickers because he's the one who got eaten. But fortunately for El Rey, he's got someone else that he can use. Let's first talk about El Rey. First, a very great and fitting voice. After the whole Toro not being a very scary governor, it made me wonder whether or not El Rey was going to be portrayed as not as evil as the stories. But it was a very ominous, creepy, and threatening voice. Granted, he may sound a tad different when not coming out of a bunch of crows, but for now, his crow voice, I love. Now about Don's death. I thought it was good. It was very brutal, you know, being eaten alive and such. The only thing that I wish would have been done different with it were a slight amount of gore. I'm not saying like limbs are all over the place, the walls are painted with blood, you can smell the iron in the air. Not that extreme, but the fact that there was nothing. No blood drip coming out of one of the mouths, no clothes or anything. It was a very kid-friendly way of doing something that's not very kid-friendly. Once again, I come back to the question that I ask myself with this show, and that is, what is the tone or who is the audience this is for? Is it going for a more mature audience? The kids? Just the Rooster Teeth audience? But with this, I think the show is trying to remain as kid-friendly as possible, while not necessarily abiding by themes and actions that would be considered kid-friendly. But I digress. Something that I almost didn't connect for some reason was El Rey and the Nomad. El Rey is this flock of crows, and the Nomad is a scarecrow. To me, this works on multiple levels. First, I think it shows us how opposite they are. El Rey has been embodying these crows, and as a symbolic moral enemy to that, the Nomad is a scarecrow. Yes, it's still good versus evil, light versus dark, but it shows us how opposite they are in a very unique and clever way. Something that I did see speculation about was El Rey's powers. Where the Nomad is strengthened by good and protecting, speculation with the opposite thing is that El Rey is strengthened by doing bad. Eating Dawn, for example. While I don't necessarily disregard it, if this were indeed true, I would think that El Rey would be unbelievably powerful. So much of the world is in distress because of him, and if it strengthens him, then he should be God at this point. I do think that eating people makes him stronger even if they aren't magic users, but the current theory that El Rey grows stronger the more evil he does, I don't 100% believe. The other thing that piqued my curiosity here had to do with their vessels. The crows surely aren't El Rey's true form, rather he's using magic to manipulate them. But what made me wonder here was about the Nomad. Of course the Scarecrow is a vessel, but can he change bodies? Where does the true Nomad reside? If Scout were to place the stone inside of a different object, would the Nomad take control over that? I don't know the answer to these things, they just keep me curious. And the final topic of interest here is Toth's future. I've said this before and it held true to the end of the season. Toth has been a bad guy throughout all of the season. Scout is what made the audience view her as one of the good guys, but fact of the matter is that Toth was never a good guy. Scout was just that pure that it bled onto the audience's perception of Toth. Now moving forward, for at least the next season, Toth is presumably going to take the place of Dawn. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be upset that Scout and Toth never got together. Not yet, at least. I believe, as I'm sure many of you do, that Scout and Toth will inevitably get together, whether it be next season or 4 seasons from now. I'm sure most of us believe their relationship is inevitable, but I do love the fact that Toth is being set up as a future antagonist. Anyway, so now that the day has been saved, it would seem as though it is time for Scout and the Nomad to part ways. But it's not going to be that simple. The Nomad convinces Scout that the two should make Nowhere a better place, so the two team up and ride off into the sunset as we await for a season 2. I'll make a review video where I talk about the season as a whole, so don't expect much here in this video. But I feel as though it's a very clean ending. They didn't set up anything exact, they gave us a general direction. Scout and Nomad are going to make Nowhere a better place. Where do you go from there? Literally anywhere. They can go to any part of the world and do what they've been doing. I think relatively speaking, the Iron Border has been the place that has had the most setup to it. First, the ranch hand said he was there, or he got his arm there. Scout's parents are from there and she was raised there. Plus, there's not many places that we know by name. But relatively speaking, the Iron Border could potentially be it. I do believe the Nomad will start treating Scout as though she were Melinda. He'll be overprotective and care too much about her. My interest with Scout lies on whether or not she will ever learn of Melinda. You know, the Nomad is a good mime, but I don't think he can silently express Melinda's existence to Scout, as well as his whole backstory. So currently, those are the things that hold my interest moving forward. I will say that something that I wish this season would have had, and I may repeat this again in my review, but I wish there were more wanted people. I get that El Rey wants magic users and so bounties are put on them, but surely there have to be other wanted people in Nowhere. I originally got this idea in episode 10 when the episode was being teased. Then they only showed us the wanted poster and I thought, oh my god, we're getting some more wanted people. But as you know, it turned out to be the same character. I can get not really putting any into the first season because you don't want to clutter a season with too many characters and information at once. But even still, instead of having like 7 wanted posters of the same individual, they could have put up wanted posters of different people. Not necessarily putting them into the show, but showing us that there are potentially other dangerous humans out there. Because you think about it and it's like, what makes being a bounty hunter such a lucrative market that like every other person the Nomad runs into is one? But it's just something that I hope to see in future seasons. But I'll definitely go more in depth with everything in my review. So for this video, I will leave off on saying it was one hell of a first season. Great writing, great storytelling, and there's so much charm to it, and it's a great show. So for now, be sure to let me know what you guys thought of the episode and the season while you're at it down in the comments below. Be sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you're interested in more content like this. Consider becoming a sponsor over on Patreon, you get all the content early, and it really does help out the channel. Be sure to follow me on all social medias, and I'll see you in the next video.